There is nobody interesting in the WNBA past or present except for Caitlin Clark. They've all shown themselves to be sexist, racist, petty, ridiculous.
What is she doing wrong? What more do you want from Caitlin Clark? Seriously, what more do you want from her?
It's killing you that a straight white woman has come into the league of angry lesbians and dominated everything.
Caitlin Clark is facing an onslaught of hate that's hard to ignore. From Jemele Hill's sharp remarks to Ros Gold's claims that Clark isn't doing enough to control her fans, the criticism just keeps piling up, and it doesn't stop there.
That idiot Angel Reese is trying so hard to latch on to Caitlin Clark by being the heel and then crying about it. You all did this. You all called her a white bitch constantly. You all did this.
Angel Reese and Alyssa Thomas have thrown serious shade, accusing Clark's supporters of being racist and hateful, but that's not all.
Listen, if people want to portray and paint the narrative that there are racial tensions in the WNBA as a result of Caitlin Clark, I would say that's their own problem.
We've seen big names like Cheryl Swoops, Dejanai Carrington, and Brittany Griner weighing in on this drama. So, what's fueling this fire? Why is so much negativity aimed at a player just trying to shine on the court?
Caitlin Clark at 22 years old coming into a league has to be Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King, and Ronald Reagan.
In this video, we're diving deep into the layers of this controversy and unpacking the implications it has for women's basketball as a whole. Trust me, you won't want to miss what we uncover.
Who is more woke than Jemele Hill? The useless one that can't get a job, but god dang it, I still got to be talking about race because that's all I got one.
Let's dive right into the comments from Jemele Hill, who has made waves recently with her snide remarks about Caitlin Clark.
She's mad, she's glad, she's angry, she's sad. She calls irresponsible headlines on Caitlin Clark's rating impact.
It's hard to ignore the tone of jealousy dripping from her words as she questions Clark's behavior and the so-called cult of fans surrounding her.
Jemele Hill, obviously always needing to say something, to chime in, to add her voice to the conversation, even when it's not necessarily needed. Basically saying Caitlin Clark is not responsible for all of this and we shouldn't pretend like she is. But she keeps neglecting to realize that the reason the league is up as a whole, every single team's ratings, are because Caitlin Clark entered the league.
Instead of acknowledging Clark's incredible talent and groundbreaking achievements, Hill seems more focused on tearing her down with misleading headlines that misrepresent the essence of Clark's journey.
I keep getting irresponsible headlines claiming the WNBA playoffs are down because no Clark. Would the ratings be higher if she went in? Of course, but guess what? Finals would rate higher if it was LeBron and Steph, or if big market teams are in the mix. So what? That's the headline. I listen to her stupidity and I'm like, I don't know, you're just an idiot.
Hill's criticisms aren't just casual commentary. They're part of a larger trend where Clark's every move is scrutinized. She highlights a false narrative that Clark's fans are somehow toxic or misguided.
All you African-American women have been to her is racist. You've been saying white girl, white bitch the entire year.
This is just another attempt to undermine a player who's not only dominating on the court, but also elevating the WNBA to new heights. Hill's attempt to paint Clark in a negative light reeks of jealousy.
Clark drew a record 1.84 viewers for her first playoff game. Game 2 viewership was more than double. Jemele Hill, Ros Gold, whatever the hell your name is, it's just killing.
Especially when we consider how other players are often celebrated for similar or even lesser feats. It's baffling that someone with Hill's platform would choose to amplify such divisive rhetoric. Instead of uplifting a rising star, she opts to contribute to a narrative that fosters division and animosity.
It's killing you that a straight white woman has come into the league of angry lesbians and dominated everything.
This kind of commentary is dangerous. It doesn't just affect Clark. It creates a hostile environment where young athletes might feel they can't express themselves or enjoy their success without being attacked.
I think Caitlin Clark is doing the right thing, rising above all of the crap that she's had to endure. The amount of fouls committed on Caitlin Clark higher than any other player, flagrant fouls committed on Caitlin Clark higher than any other player. Caitlin Clark was worried about playing the game, and that is why she got Rookie of the Year. She was not worried about the BS.
As we dissect Hill's remarks, it becomes clear that her motives are questionable at best. The question remains, why is there so much effort to diminish Clark's accomplishments? Is it jealousy? A fear of change in the landscape of women's sports?
Angry that a white girl has come in and dominated what could not be even approached.
Whatever the reason, it's a sad commentary on how some in the media choose to engage with female athletes. Now, let's shift our focus to Ros Gold, whose recent comments have added fuel to the fire.
This is the stupidest thing I have seen. She wants Caitlin Clark, this woman who nobody knows, nobody outside of family gives a rat's ass about. She wants Caitlin Clark to be more vocal about racism permeating through the WNBA.
Instead of recognizing Caitlin Clark's achievements, Gold has jumped on the bandwagon of criticism, suggesting that Clark isn't doing enough to manage her fan base.
All the African-American lesbians that have been so racist to Caitlin Clark. What if Caitlin Clark just wanted to play? What if at 22 years old trying to make her way into basketball, but that ain't good enough for Roz Gold Owande because she's an idiot?
This is not only misleading, but also completely disregards the pressure and scrutiny that comes with being a high-profile athlete. Gold's remarks echo a troubling pattern we've seen lately, an alarming trend where players like Angel Reese and Alyssa Thomas have made derogatory statements, labeling Clark's supporters as racist and haters.
Problem is you have all of these players, Angel Reese, for example. You have Alyssa Thomas fueling the ideas of racial abuse by fans, but there's no real evidence of it. Brittany Griner speaking out against it. It's, the fans are calling us this, they're shouting these things. Did anybody hear any of these racial slurs happening or these racist actions by fans? The evidence wasn't there, so how are you going to talk about it if there's no evidence, right?
It's astonishing that instead of addressing the toxic behavior, these players are using Clark as a scapegoat for their grievances. They've chosen to target her and her fans, deflecting from their own accountability and fueling a narrative of hatred.
Women should just shut up and dribble in the WNBA. The more they talk, the dumber they are. We get dumber when they speak. We get dumber when their media speak.
This ongoing criticism isn't just isolated incidents. It's a concerted effort to create a narrative that positions Clark as the villain. We've heard it from Cheryl Swoops, Dejanai Carrington, and even Brittany Griner, all perpetuating this idea that Clark's fans are somehow problematic. This kind of mob mentality is harmful and distracts from the real issues at play. It's almost as if they're more concerned with tearing down a rival than celebrating the growth and success of women's basketball as a whole.
Caitlin has not had a proactive approach around toxic fandom and what's appropriate for or something that she celebrates or likes to see in her fan base, or being proactive against any type of hateful discourse around WNBA and its players.
She is mad, Rose Golden-Wude is mad that Caitlin Clark has not gone out of her way during her rookie season, when she's ultra focused on basketball, to focus on race relations in the WNBA, to focus on racial tensions, which Caitlin Clark has nothing to do with.
She said Caitlin Clark's wrong for not doing it, but I understand why she's doing it. It's just stupid. I'm telling you, I know this woman went to Stanford. How, I don't know.
What's particularly troubling is that this negativity not only impacts Clark, but also has wider implications for the sport. Young athletes watching these exchanges could internalize the message that they have to tear each other down to succeed. It's a toxic cycle that we need to break, and it starts with addressing the hate and the unfounded claims directed at Clark.
It's like every time Caitlin Clark or these idiots in the WNBA have any issue, Caitlin Clark at 22 years old coming into a league has to be Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King, and Ronald Reagan.
In a time when women's sports should be lifting each other up, we're seeing players and commentators alike engaging in this destructive narrative. It's a reminder that we must be vigilant and critical of how we discuss athletes, especially when that discussion is riddled with envy and spite.
Oh, we want to be treated like the men, but special. Don't say bad things about us on Twitter. Don't look at Twitter if you don't want to see bad things.
As we delve deeper into this issue, it's crucial to recognize the broader implications of the hate directed at Caitlin Clark. This isn't just about one player. It's about a culture that is beginning to normalize hostility and negativity within women's sports.
There is nobody interesting in the WNBA past or present except for Caitlin Clark. They've all shown themselves to be sexist, racist, petty, ridiculous.
When prominent figures like Jemele Hill and Roz Gold spread divisive narratives, they risk fostering an environment where criticism overshadows support. The reality is that Clark's rise has not only highlighted her incredible talent, but has also made her a target for those who feel threatened by her success.
She's really looking out for everybody else, and it's so sad that there are so many people that continue to turn a blind eye to that. Knowing how selfless she is, and they still want to say, Caitlin Clark, she's not the reason, let's give other players their flowers. No, Caitlin Clark is the reason.
Instead of celebrating her achievements, like becoming one of the top scorers and a fan favorite. Many choose to fixate on her supposed shortcomings or the actions of her fans. This is a classic case of blaming the victim, and it's an unhealthy precedent that we must challenge.
The ratings were phenomenal because of Caitlin Clark. She didn't want to take credit for all of those ratings, but we all realize that Caitlin Clark single-handedly is responsible for the WNBA mattering.
When we see players like Angel Reese and Alyssa Thomas hurling accusations of racism towards Clark's supporters, it's a clear attempt to shift the narrative away from their own actions. This kind of scapegoating not only distracts from meaningful discussions about the sport, but also pits athletes against one another, creating a toxic atmosphere that stifles camaraderie and growth.
You know, for whatever reason, they decide to get themselves involved, whether it is actually malintent or maybe they just want to get themselves in the headline. A lot of players got the spotlight this season because of Caitlin Clark, not to mention just overall Caitlin Clark brought millions, literally, more eyeballs to the league this season.
Women's sports should be a space where athletes lift each other up, not tear each other down. Moreover, the constant barrage of negative comments can have serious psychological effects on athletes. The pressure to perform while facing public disdain can lead to anxiety, depression, and a host of other mental health issues.
Hey, look at the numbers everywhere else across women's basketball. It's not just Caitlin Clark, it's all of us. And then the moment the ratings tank, they're going to come back and say, see, we were right all along. It's all the racists that follow Caitlin Clark that were watching the product, and now they're gone, and we're back with our diehards. It is bad news for the WNBA that she's not continuing to play.
Caitlin Clark, a young star in the league, should be able to focus on her game without the weight of unjustified hate hanging over her head. We must recognize that these narratives have real-world consequences, affecting not just the athletes, but the fans and young aspiring players watching from the sidelines.
I was wrong about the impact that Caitlin Clark was going to have on the WNBA. I did not think it was possible that one player could come in and basically quadruple the ratings.
If we want to see women's sports thrive, we need to shift our focus from division to unity. It's time to put an end to the toxic narrative that's developing around Caitlin Clark and to start embracing a culture that values support over hate. After all, it's not just about one player. It's about the future of women's sports as a whole.
Clark, by the way, has been the WNBA's Rookie of the Year. She will receive a special trophy, and she also has a bonus.
$5,000.
It is right at it. $5,150.
Did I really guess that right? I was trying to go inappropriately low on my guess, and I nailed it.
As we wrap up this discussion, it's clear that the negativity surrounding Caitlin Clark is not just a reflection of her talent, but a symptom of a larger issue within women's sports. From the unwarranted criticism by figures like Jemele Hill and Ross Gold to the troubling accusations of racism, it's evident that Caitlin is facing an uphill battle, not just on the court, but in the court of public opinion.
Caitlin didn't bring racism to the WNBA. This has been happening. And that, I think, is what's been such a shock for all of us, that other people are surprised by this. We've been trying to tell you. And once again, for so long, as a player, I would almost joke. I'd be like, I would have loved to have shut up and dribble. In so many ways, I would have loved to have been valued as a basketball player. I would have been loved to have been spoken about just for my play. I think everybody in the league can say that. But nobody ever let us do that.
We need to take a stand against this cycle of hate. Let's celebrate the remarkable achievements of athletes like Clark, who have worked tirelessly to elevate the game.
We're good with black men and we'll support them. But black women, we hate them and we won't watch them. And so it's all racist. Nah, your product wasn't any good. It wasn't marketed properly.
It's time to shift our focus from tearing down our stars to building them up. We can and should be better as fans, commentators, and as a community.
And you didn't have a superstar. Now you got one. And instead of complaining about what you didn't have, you should be thankful for what you do have.
What do you think about the narrative surrounding Caitlin Clark? Are we witnessing a troubling trend in sports media, or is there more to this story? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more content, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next discussion. Together, let's advocate for a positive change in how we talk about our athletes. Until next time, Keep supporting and uplifting each other in the world of sports.